Brownsville. The Brownsville section of Brooklyn, USA has been a tough neighborhood for as long as most New Yorkers can remember. Out here, 20 subway stops and billions of dollars away from Park and Fifth Avenues, the families of Brownsville will tell you that life can't be much tougher anywhere else. This was true in 1943, when New York City Housing Authority photographers got off the A train at Rockaway Avenue and started taking pictures. They captured Sutter and Stone, Rockaway and Dumont, the gritty arteries of Brownsville. And it was still hard in the 1980s when the authority, architects of the nation's largest and most successful public housing program, sent a different crew with a different camera along some of the very same streets.
Orders or whatever, they ain't gonna do this. They ain't gonna come through the middle of the hood. Let's go. They'll stand on the outskirts with the police. They ain't gonna come in the middle. Right now, we in the middle of Brownsville. This where it go down now. This is where it go down. A lot of people get killed all over this area. You know what I mean? Gunshots just erupt at any time. Right now, we on the block known as D Block. You know what I mean? A lot of shit happened over here. I ain't gonna go into detail, but a lot of people got shot on this block right here.
Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the vital speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the bay.
So as I became part of that, it just really changed for me as far as who he was and how, like, the community looked up to him. I seen a whole different person. It's like Michael Jordan being your father and you don't know, you just know him as dad, and next thing you know, you're on the team and you like, he's the star player, he's the superstar, you know? In the community, he kind of, you know, as far as paid people rent, because we was close by the projects and it was low income, you know. There was a lot of people with low income that he grew up with, and, you know, he was able to help people go to school, you know, help donate to people tuitions for school. Prospect Plazas, we lived it close to that. At Ocean Hill, Brownsville, like by Pickens Avenue, Saratoga.
Remember them niggas from the hill up in Brownsville that you rolled dice with, smooth bloods and got nice with? I make it a thrill again, bringing the ruckus to the neighborhood hood. From the hill, that's real.
The NYPD just released video of two men wanted for shooting two people in Brooklyn. Video shows a man in a white T-shirt pacing near the Brownsville houses on Stone Avenue on July 3rd. He then hands what appears to be a gun to a man in a black sweatshirt. Police say that man fired several shots at a group inside a park at the houses. A man and woman, both 19, were shot in the leg. Both are recovering.
Yeah, I knew Brooklyn was different when my guys, the Wave Gang, they go by the Woo now, you know what I mean? But they had me in Brownsville Projects.
Okay.
Yeah, they had me in Brownsville Projects, and when I got there, like when I really seen the projects firsthand, that's when I seen like, this is totally different from Harlem. This is nowhere, and Harlem ain't got nothing on this. This is different. This is like walking past the police with a bottle of rosé and they don't say shit. Like, this is different. Like, all they care about is shootouts, and they might not even walk up. They gonna call for backup. It's dark over there. It's different.
Craziest neighborhood in all of New York?
In all of New York?
That you've been to, maybe?
That I've been to? Damn. They gonna be mad at me. I can't just say one. Yeah, nah, no, Brownsville is like to me, in New York, in New York, cause see, if I say no, now it's like, word, so we ain't gangster like that? Nah, but I think Brownsville, honestly, Brownsville is different. It would be some people from East New York that'd tell you Brownsville. For real.
On the map, Brownsville is just a rectangle of streets on the east side of Brooklyn. And growing up in Brooklyn, me personally, I always looked at it as two parts, distinct areas that shared the same name, but differed in terrain and had their own histories. One section runs down Rockaway Avenue and is stacked with long rows of NYCHA superblocks built from the 1950s through the 1970s. And over time, this single square mile will become home to one of the highest concentrations of public housing in New York City. Nearly 10,000 apartments packed into a tight stretch of developments that housed more residents than entire neighborhoods in other boroughs. The 73rd precinct that covers these blocks has repeatedly reported some of the highest rates of shootings and homicides in Brooklyn year after year, long after other neighborhoods saw the numbers fall. Now, the other section rises north along Saratoga and Howard. As the pavement starts to incline, the streets shift into what locals would call the Hill, the upper side of Brownsville, Prospect Place, St. Mark's, Sterling, and it would be there during the mid-70s when Prospect Plaza would be built across 4.5 acres between Howard and Saratoga, officially Ocean Hill, but tied into Brownsville through the school zones, family ties, but more than that, the day-to-day movement of the people who crossed these blocks way before anyone was arguing about borders. And as explained from someone who lived up the hill, they would say it's like you knew the hood by heart, who lived in which building, what alley led you to what courtyard, and how quickly things can get turned on a block that outsiders would barely notice. And just to me, Brownsville is split by the projects on Rockaway and the Hill. But one thing they definitely have in common is you can get killed. It's a scenario that looks like this. You could be getting chased out of the projects on Rockaway, run up the hill thinking you're running towards safety, and die up there. So, by the late 1970s through the 1980s, the label of dangerous wasn't something that Brownsville grew into. It had already been that way for generations, with stories that stretch from Rockaway to up the hill, shootings lighting up courtyards, and beefs that could last seasons, crews that watch each other from building to building with a certain level of tension. And when crack came, it rose the stakes, intensifying what was already present. On the Rockaway side, it seemed like the violence touched everything. The playgrounds in front of the projects, lobbies, and open spaces in between the towers. But up the hill, it kind of looked different. Bodies found in stairwells, hallway assaults, and murders on corners like Saratoga and Bergen. The layout would change from block to block over the years, but the danger wouldn't. Both sides of Brownsville would live with a level of violence that would shape entire generations. And during the crack epidemic in the mid-1980s, in the upper section on the rise above Saratoga and under the shadows of Prospect Plaza, that one notorious group would become bigger than any block they would ever stand on. A crew whose actions would help build the reputation that Brownsville is still known for today.
At the time, okay, let's get, so you were acquitted of 5 bodies.
I was acquitted of 4.
4 bodies, and 25 other murders was
allegedly under the crew that we was.
Okay, cool.
Right.
What enemy that you had that you can give credit to that took it to you? What I mean, that stood their ground, and you can say, you know what?
Just Uzi. That's it.
I don't know who that is.
That's Delroy.
The Jamaican guy.
Yeah, that was it, man. Everybody else, man, it's like they shoot back, but he was bringing it to us too.
Oh, he was.
Oh, for facts. You know, come right through our hood and do what he got to do. But the thing was, it wasn't no letting up. Everybody else, it was like nothing, man. It wasn't worth talking about them dudes.
Got you. Uzi did.
But basically what you asking is this, right? Everything revolved around the drug trade. You know, crack, city under siege, 86, 85, 87.
As Ben Farnsworth continues his undercover look at the brazen pushers at work.
For Red Hook residents, their battleground is their home, and the enemy is literally on their doorstep. Drug dealers trading crack for cash on the stoops of the buildings in which they live. During our investigation, we saw hundreds of drug deals in a bold business that dealers describe as 24/7.
So it was a lot of violence. I was going at it with the Jamaican posses. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of things came from there.
Is it the shower posses?
Yeah, with Delroy, Uzi Delroy.
Yeah.
Me and him got cool though later, but it started, you know, we was enemies. You know, and I was taking it to them. And it was no let up. They tried to move in on my area, right across the street from the center. Yeah. And
exactly.
And I had to push them out. This is my hood.
During the height of the crack era, prosecutors in Brooklyn were tracking several violent narcotic organizations operating across Brownsville and Bedford-Stuyvesant. And one of the names that would appear again and again in case files was Donny Smallwood. His organization would grow inside of neighborhoods already drowning in open-air drug markets and escalating the murder rate. And by the mid-1980s, the crew that people on the Hill would grow to know as the Wild Bunch had emerged as one of the more violent, organized, and notorious crews in the entire city. Reporter Ron Rosenbaum, writing for the New York Times Magazine, would record one of the origin tales that an old-timer from Brownsville would tell him about how it all got started. According to one Hill resident that he interviewed, way back when the hood had its own number system, Donny would hit a full number one day and score a $60,000 lick off a $100 bet. And when he went to collect, the numbers man, who was said to be tied to the mafia and only explained as a reputed organized crime figure, supposedly didn't have the cash, and instead he paid Donny in heroin. And from there, police and prosecutors would allege that Donny would move on to something bigger, moving with the market from heroin to cocaine and then eventually to crack, building what detectives would later call a major league crack selling rink with beeper connected carriers running product and money between round-the-clock crack spots. According to the district attorney at the time, Elizabeth Holtzman, Donny would run a structured narcotics organization out of Dumont Avenue. Prosecutors would later allege that he used paper corporations and front businesses to launder profits into grocery stores, apartment buildings, and retail ventures in Brooklyn, upstate New York, and as far as Florida. On the streets, he didn't hide in the shadows. Detectives would say that he sponsored softball teams, picnics, dances, and even Madison Square Garden outings, buying jewelry for kids who worked for him, with the article saying if they really proved themselves, he would even buy them cars. And to the young people on the Hill, Brooklyn's millionaire Kingpin didn't just look rich. He looked like proof of how lucrative the drug game actually was. And he didn't play no games, as according to law enforcement files, the Wild Bunch would be allegedly tied back to violence as early as 1984, with some of the events being documented in detail, like a June 27, 1984 attack where prosecutors would allege that members of the group would beat a 34-year-old by the name of James Carter Williams with bats before shooting him on Bergen Street and Ralph Avenue, a murder for which Donny Smallwood Sr., his referenced godson, Anthony O.G. Nuke Jennings, a basketball standout by the name of Beaver Washington, and a fourth man was all named as defendants. 2 years later, on Valentine's Day, February 14, 1986, Nuke would be charged in an alleged shooting of a 21-year-old by the name of Anthony Jones on Bergen and Saratoga. That fall, on September 10th, Nuke and another man by the name of Taskus Burrell were accused of killing a 33-year-old by the name of Ricky McDowell on that same Saratoga and Bergen corner. And on November 26th of that same year, prosecutors would tie Nuke to another murder on Saratoga Avenue, this time with an accomplice in the murder of an alleged former Wild Bunch member by the name of James Porterfield Baker, who would end up being shot in the face. Each of those cases would tie back to the same circle, the same streets, the same crew, and the same alleged pattern of beatings that was followed by gunfire. The district attorney's spokesman at the time, Glenn Goldsberg, would confirm that the group's public identity, their softball team, the jerseys, the outings, will function as a front for the real organization. And amongst the people named in those cases, Anthony O.G. Nuke Jennings stands out. At only 19 years old at the time, he is described by investigators as the one who handled the crew's most violent business, effectively the enforcer for the Wild Bunch. Task Force detectives would later point out that O.G. Nuke wasn't just listed in Brooklyn murder complaints. He was also wanted in New Jersey for allegedly opening fire on a police officer with a Uzi, a case where they said the officer survived only because the weapon jammed. But inside of the Brooklyn's North Detective Unit, Deputy Inspector Charles Prestia and his squad were quietly charting the damage. Analysts would map drug-related homicides across Brownsville and Bed-Stuy, circling the same corners over and over. Ralph Avenue, Saratoga, Bergen, Pacific. They would watch as the Wild Bunch's name was surfaced in one investigation after another, while the leader of the organization, Donny Sr., was said to be buying 40 Madison Square Garden tickets at a time for the group, just a measure that detectives would say of how big the organization had become. On paper, it started to look like a pattern, and on the streets, it looked like a crew moving as if no one could touch them. But what investigators didn't say publicly was that the expansion that they were going through would come at risk. The Wild Bunch wasn't just growing, it was moving into spaces that was controlled by other organizations. And according to a later federal complaint sworn by Detective Robert Gomez, by the spring of 1987, a Jamaican-led crew was in an open turf war with the Wild Bunch, a conflict that police intelligence analysts believed left roughly 6 people dead and multiple people wounded. Some of the bloodiest confrontations were tied to lucrative spots in and around Ralph Avenue and Pacific Street, where Donny's organization would begin colliding with a posse whose soldiers, agents said, had come north from Jamaica specifically to build their own drug networks. Donny Sr. and the Wild Bunch's drive for money, reach, and influence would eventually place the crew on a direct collision course with a rival whose rise followed a very different path. A newcomer to the city, a foreigner who was money-loving, bloodthirsty, and a seasoned veteran, fresh from the political and street wars of his hometown. A man who seemed like he came to the United States with one goal in mind: to get rich.
Chubby's territory is Rinker's Corner. The Rinker's leader was Delroy Edwards, known as Uzi because of his use of the machine gun of that name. The Rinker's gang still control this corner, even though their leader is serving 6 life sentences for murder in a US jail. Members of the Rinker's formed a vicious Yardie gang that grew rich on crack trafficking in Brooklyn and London. Uzi was known for his brutality.
Ralph and Pacific, y'all. Ralph and Pacific. We in those streets.
Just for the record.
Yeah,
the Uzi down West Coast. Come on.
Oh yeah, go. Please elaborate on that, bro. Please elaborate on that.
They didn't almost kill nobody. He shot him in the arm. My cousin got shot in the arm. He got shot in the foot. Yeah, I mean, nobody never died from getting shot in the foot.
See, I was on violation, so you know the story. You was in the exactly.
I was there. I was in that war. It was a war. I ain't gonna take nothing.
No.
I ain't gonna take nothing away from Uzi.
Yeah.
He was bringing them young boys from Jamaica, giving them guns, and telling them to go up there and do what they got to do, and they was bringing it.
Mm-hmm.
Motherfuckers was bringing it, but they was also getting laid the fuck down.
Okay.
On our team, on our side, my cousin got shot 2 times, the arm and then the foot. Nobody else on our team got hit. I got grazed in the head. I ain't nobody else. Nobody ain't died on our team. Nobody. He ain't run nobody out of nowhere.
But 2 cats did go to trial and wind up getting acquitted for it. You understand? Yeah. But he'll tell the story that ain't nobody did nothing. Yeah.
Died. Ralph Pacific was up here. The war was in '86. The Uzi. 86 from November '86 to maybe December, some shit like that. Before he called the troops.
Wow.
But they couldn't live there. They couldn't get nothing down there.
Wow.
Yes. Well, I'm saying it to him and anybody else. I stood 10 toes down. Can y'all say that? I don't point the finger at no one. I got a cold friend that did 12 and after 25. Had nothing to do with it.
Wow.
Nothing.
Wow.
And I went on to stand for him to get him acquitted. That's how I jammed myself up on the case. And when I came home to help him get his name exonerated.
By the late 1980s, some details that once made Donny Smallwood look untouchable, the softball teams, the concert tickets, the gold jewelry he put on neighborhood kids, were now staring back at detectives from homicide binders. On March 26, Brooklyn District Attorney Elizabeth Holtzman's office and the Brooklyn North Detective Command will form a joint task force to dig into 11 murders they suspected was tied to Donny Sr. and the Wild Bunch. Detective Inspector Charles Prestia took command of the unit. Prosecutor John Brasunda, Joseph Harkins, and Robert Silverstein were assigned to ride shotgun. At 36 years old, the man some on the Hill saw as Brooklyn's millionaire Kingpin was no longer just a rumor in drug files. He would sit at the top of a multi-agency murder investigation. The task force set up inside the Brooklyn North Homicide Office and went to work. Detectives would build thick card files on each case, cross-indexing names that kept turning up in different precincts, tracking movements of suspects and charting the weapons and ballistic links. They drew a map of what they called the killing zone on the hill, dotting the corners where the bodies had dropped. Working closely with Brooklyn's district attorney's office, they began flipping scared witnesses with offers of immunity, relocation, and hotel rooms far from Brownsville. As one sergeant later joked to reporter Ron Rosenbaum, they did some good for the hotel industry while they were quietly dismantling the aura of invincibility around the Wild Bunch. One of the first breaks would come when the witness, who refused to talk for years, finally agreed to testify before a grand jury about the 1984 killing on Ralph Avenue, the death of James Fizzo Carter, a man that was suspected of holding up Wild Bunch crack locations. According to prosecutors' versions of events, Fizzo was surrounded on the streets by Donny Sr., Nuke, and other members of the crew, beaten with baseball bats, and then finished off with 3 shots. Defense attorney Kenneth Schreiber flatly denied that his client ordered or took part in any murder and insisted that Donny Sr. made his money legitimately through retail businesses and youth programs. But for investigators, it was the first time they could put the alleged Brooklyn's Kingpin's name next to a hands-on homicide. Task force files would also tie Nuke to other violence that on paper had nothing to do with crack, but said everything about his reputation. Detectives would allege that just at 18, Nuke would shoot a man after a dispute at a party. A simple diss that they would describe it, that escalated into murder. Though in an interview I would see with Nuke, he would explain that it had something to do with a bully and a missing chain. But after it was all said and done, to detectives, it would reinforce what people on the Hill probably already believed. If the Wild Bunch needed something vicious done, Nuke was probably the one that was expected to handle it. And against that backdrop, James Baker, known on the streets as Quarterfield, will become the most dangerous kind of problem. In the New York Times reporting, Quarterfield is described as a former protege and sometimes partner of Donny Sr. and the Wild Bunch, who grew more flamboyant, reckless, and ambitious than the laid-back godfather of the Hill. Police would say that he opened his own crack spot on the same block as one of Donny Sr.'s locations and refused to pay tribute. Word on the streets was that he bragged about stealing money from the Kingpin and even boasted that he slept with one of Donny's girls. Rumors of Quarterfield pulling a gun on Donny Smallwood. Then a few would get more sinister when, according to police and Rosenbaum's article, Quarterfield would briefly return to the inner circle, even driving Donny's 6-year-old son to school. Then, one day, he never came home. A ransom call would demand $50,000. And when the child was safely returned, some people on the Hill would notice that Quarterfield suddenly seemed to be walking around with more money than he had previously. On the streets, the talk was that Donny believed that Quarterfield was behind the plot, and that initially sealed his fate. Whether that is true or not, detectives agree on what happened next, the last act of a slow-building war. between the Godfather and a man who seemed like he tried to replace him. On Thanksgiving Eve of 1986, Porterfield was said to be tending to his business at one of his spots when his beeper allegedly went off, signaling it was time to resupply at another location. As he would walk to his Mercedes, a man with a silver gun would step out and open fire, allegedly hitting him in the chest. Before he could collapse, witnesses would say that Nuke appeared, catching him and easing him into the passenger seat of his vehicle. Those same witnesses would say that they overheard Nuke say that he was rushing him to the hospital and saw him wave off anyone trying to get into the back seat. 2 hours later, police would find the Mercedes parked on a side street near Wingate High School in Flatbush, Brooklyn. Porterfield would be dead in the passenger seat with 4 more bullets in his head and 1 in the neck, all fired at close range. At first, the case was stalled, with police alleging that Nuke gave a tearful statement portraying himself as a loyal friend who panicked when he saw police cars near the hospital and abandoned the car only after seeing one of Porterfield's associates arrive in a separate vehicle. It wasn't until the task force would track down the driver of an Oldsmobile 98, the man that they would effectively say Nuke intended to blame for the crime, that the story would shift. According to the witness's version, he had followed the Mercedes towards the hospital as he watched it slow down and heard a series of shots and saw the car shake before it pulled over, with Nuke eventually walking away from it. It would be those accounts, along with other witnesses, that would lead a Brooklyn grand jury to indict Nuke for Porterfield's murder and to identify the first shooter, the man with the silver gun, as Lorenzo Gillespie, an alleged Wild Bunch associate. Both men would plead not guilty, and the indictment did not charge Donny Sr. with ordering the hit. But from law enforcement's perspective, the godson's alleged trigger work was the final weight on a scale already loaded with bodies. Court records would eventually show that Nuke would beat 4 of the 5 murders that came out of the task force investigation, but he would ultimately be convicted in the James Porterfield Baker case. In later interviews, Donny Smallwood Jr., or Little Donny, who had grown up around the organization and would eventually become a part of it, would talk about how the early 90s, 1992, 1993 deaths of both his father and his mother would push him to walk away from the life entirely. James Porterfield Baker's murder will become a hinge point within the Wild Bunch. The case that seemed to close one chapter on Brooklyn's Kingpin millionaire and the notorious Wild Bunch would set the stage for appeals, exoneration fights, and a man caught in the middle trying to write a different ending than the system had planned.
We are live at 5:30 and topping the news right now, an I-Team exclusive update. The Brooklyn DA's office is defending a decades-old murder conviction, even though stunning new evidence has just surfaced.
The case highlights questions about secret financial deals given to prosecution witnesses. Investigative reporter Sarah Wallace takes a deep dive into the controversy.
The Brooklyn DA's office here consented to a hearing on Lorenzo Glaspie's claim of actual innocence, but that meant they had to turn over a lot of evidence to the defense. Now a spokesman is blasting Glaspie's team for sharing it with the media, adding they are standing by the 35-year-old conviction.
My buddy, my crew.
At 64, Lorenzo Glaspie has a new life, released from prison 20 years ago, but he is still haunted by the label of convicted killer he got in 1989.
I'm gonna fight to the end. I'm gonna do my best to clear my name.
Back in January, we were in court when a Brooklyn judge ordered a rare hearing on new evidence surrounding Glaspie's conviction.
Am I correct, Ms. Toder, that the prosecution is consenting to an evidentiary hearing with respect to the claims of newly discovered evidence and actual innocence?
Yes, Your Honor. Glaspie and a co-defendant, Anthony Jennings, were charged and convicted for shooting a drug dealer named Porterfield, real name James Baker. Jennings, who also is out of prison, has publicly claimed recently Glaspie had nothing to do with the crime. Instead, Jennings named his accomplice as Little Rick Williams.
So if you did the least little thing to me, I want to inflict the most pain possible. So most of the time, I'll wind up somebody getting killed.
Glaspie's defense team says they just received scores of documents the judge ordered the Brooklyn DA's office to turn over, including critical information detailing benefits given to the prosecution's only witness, Barry Antley, who had recanted his testimony before he died in 2009.
They've claimed that any benefit to Mr. Antley was speculative, entirely without merit. He was paid. He's paid for months afterwards. He's given money for meal allowances, incidentals, a security deposit on a new apartment, furniture, hundreds of dollars for furniture. It shocks the conscience.
He came and testified at trial saying that he seen me do the shooting. I knew it was a lie because I'm innocent.
The DA's office, now responding to the new evidence, maintains Antley was relocated and supported after the trial because of threats, adding it was a miscommunication when the office said last month a review of the trial file does not reveal post-trial contact between Antley and the KCDA.
There's no indication that there's any threat to him. If we had not received this discovery in relation to the hearing, this lie may have been continued in perpetuity.
But there's more controversy. This recording the defense team just obtained, not from the DA's office, but from a defense attorney representing Anthony Green, another Brooklyn man trying to prove his innocence. Reporter Chris Glorioso highlighted that case in May. You can hear a witness being questioned by Charles Lenehan, the chief of the DA's Conviction Review Unit, nearly 2 years ago. Without prompting, she mentions Little Rick as the shooter of Porterfield, the man Glaspie was convicted of killing.
He shot Porterfield. Okay. Now that's interesting, right? Because there's a big mystery about the Porterfield murder, right? And you're saying Little Rick shot Porterfield.
A DA spokesman told us that since the conversation was connected to an unrelated case, he, Lenehan, was not in a position to know its implication on Mr. Glaspie's case and therefore had nothing to disclose or follow up on.
How would you describe it? Just completely shocking. This is exculpatory evidence that should have been given to Mr. Glaspie in September of 2022 when this was recorded.
How do you look at the DA's office now?
I can't trust them. There's no trust in the system.
A hearing date has not yet been set. The DA's office stressing it will be up to the defense to prove that the prosecution's star witness got a deal to testify. From downtown Brooklyn, Sarah Wallace, News 4 New York.